What is up, guys? We are back here on the Kick-Ass Podcast. We are back for a second show this week. Today is solely focusing on WWE. I intended on dropping this a few days ago, but with everything breaking with Cody Rhodes and the possibility with him going to WWE, I had to kind of rearrange things, and I felt like that was a more timely show to drop that, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight into what I was thinking and what maybe his future holds in the WWE aspect and everything like that. So if you haven't checked that one out yet, I would recommend it just because I kind of want to hear your guys' feedback. Let me know what you guys think. I am on Twitter at ASHMANNS, and the show's podcast page is at kickashpodcast_. So again, I'd love to hear what you guys think about everything that's going on in the crazy AEW part of the wrestling universe that's now bleeding over to WWE. But yeah, like I said, today is just solely focusing on the Elimination Chamber. We're going to do a prediction show since that is not debuting, but that is airing tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on the Peacock, or if you are lucky enough to still have the WWE Network, you can find it there as well. And if you do have the WWE Network still, I am jealous because I still hate Peacock. Unless you guys want to sponsor the show, then you guys are great. But it has gotten better in all seriousness. They have added a whole bunch of content that we were missing from the WWE Network days, and they are getting better with being able to pause the live show and things like that I personally bitched about. And we'll take full ownership for said bitching, because it was kind of ridiculous. You can't pause a live show, you can't start a show live like that or you can't start a show that's already been live, right? Like, for instance, like if you're starting it late and you're maybe 30 minutes late or something like that, like you have to start where the live show is. You couldn't have gone back. So again, this is not a tangent on Peacock, because the whole point was to kind of give them a little bit of credit. So kudos to them for the stuff that they have improved on. But tomorrow's show, like I said, is at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, which is a weird time for us here in the United States. But it's kind of cool. It'll be kind of cool to have an afternoon wrestling show and have some content early in the day, and maybe do an early review show and get that posted for you guys, just depending on how tomorrow goes. But eventually I'll get that review show out either sometime tomorrow or Sunday. But with the timing of it, I may be able to get it a little bit sooner than normal. But with all that being said, let's get into the show itself. Tomorrow's show, with it being the Elimination Chamber, PLE, trying to get better at remembering that. With that being the Elimination Chamber, it's actually the first show that it's an actual WWE former pay-per-view that's actually being held there. Normally they would have like they created their own shows for Saudi Arabia events, right? Like I believe it was Super Showdown. I believe that was that one, or that may have been the Australian one. But they created their own events normally for when they go to Saudi Arabia. But this is the first time that one of their actual PLE/former PPVs are taking place over in Saudi Arabia. So, and the talent have already landed over there, obviously. I don't know if you follow, well, I'm sure you guys probably follow some of the wrestlers on either Twitter or Instagram, but the one I was literally just looking at before I started recording was Sonya Deville's, because it's very fascinating to me that she is making the trip over there, and it shows, say what you want, but it kind of shows the growth in the relationship. So that's a pretty cool thing. So I was kind of curious to see her journey and to see to see Saudi Arabia through her world, and it's pretty cool. So she's posted a few pictures up there and some stuff on her story. So I'd recommend checking that out if you guys want. And it's cool to see the inside of the palace or whatever it is, and things like that. I don't really know exactly where they are, so I don't want to misspeak or anything like that. But from what she posted, it looks beautiful, and the food looks amazing. It looks like they're having a good time. So that's cool and good to see and refreshing to hear. So regardless, I'm excited to see the women tomorrow. They have a tag team match, which we'll get into, but that is it. I just thought it was a pretty interesting little side note with it being the Elimination Chamber, and it makes me wonder if future actual PLEs are going to be done in Saudi Arabia as well, or if they're going to go back to creating specific events for the shows that they end up doing over there. But we will definitely see about that. But another thing that's kind of interesting with this too is all the speculation with Stone Cold Steve Austin returning to the ring for WrestleMania for an actual match, which is insane. And it's funny, I mentioned on the Cody Rhodes show that I did the other day, I was planning on doing a specific outside of the ring show, which I'm still hoping to do at some point. But Stone Cold Steve Austin was obviously going to be the main talking point on that. But like I said, with everything happening with Cody, that was just kind of took over a bit, which again is insane to say out loud. But if you guys, I'm sure haven't heard, or I'm sure you guys have heard, but if you haven't, Stone Cold Steve Austin is rumored to be making his in-ring return at WrestleMania 38. Of course, with it being in Texas, that's kind of, an obvious giveaway right there. But Kevin Owens has been starting to diss the state of Texas on Raw lately, and of course he's been playing a heel now, and I personally have really enjoyed this version of Kevin Owens, but putting that to the side, he obviously has been doing the stunner as well as his finishing move, so obviously we all know who made that move popular, and it's kind of interesting to think about with all of the matches or possibility of matches in the past. Stone Cold would possibly come out of retirement for a match with Kevin Owens, and again, don't get me wrong, and I know that probably sounds horrible, and I don't mean for it to, because I am a huge Kevin Owens fan, but it's just kind of random, and like it just, I feel like happened out of nowhere, like with Kevin Owens just randomly starting to diss Texas. I don't think he's said anything specifically about Stone Cold yet. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty certain I haven't heard him actually name drop Austin. But I did read somewhere that apparently Austin had now I don't know if this is true or not, but Austin had a ring delivered to whichever property. Because I believe he lives in Vegas, in maybe not California, but I'm pretty certain at one point, if he doesn't still, he lived in like the Nevada area. And Texas, of course, so I'm assuming maybe it was Texas. It would kind of make sense, right? But he apparently had a ring delivered to one of his properties, and supposedly has been working out since then and getting in, I guess, ring shape. So that's kind of a little even more interesting and adds a little bit more to the plate there, but I'm still kind of leery on this. I feel like, and again, I could be missing, the thing is with this, apparently that he's being offered a lot of money, right? Like millions. And of course, if you're going to get Austin out of retirement, it should generate millions on his end. So kudos to him if he is getting a nice bag, which you would kind of almost guarantee he is at this point. But I don't know. Like, I just think back to when CM Punk was hot, right? What was that? He was hot for a while, but 2013 and certain I don't know. I'm pretty certain that was the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but around that time frame, CM Punk was hot, right? Like he was maybe at the peak of his WWE career and tenure, and I just feel like if anything was gonna pull Austin out of retirement and be enticing to him story wise and match wise, it would have been something like a CM Punk. And hey, maybe we still have plenty of time, I guess. Maybe Owens can start, if that is the case and that's what's going to happen, Owens can start, shit-talking Austin on Raw now, kind of like what we saw with John Cena and The Undertaker in the past, right? When Undertaker was supposedly ignoring John Cena's request at a match, and Cena came out there, I don't even know how many weeks straight it was, but just continuously came out there and just berated The Undertaker essentially and called him Mark Calloway, or maybe he didn't say the full name, but I know he said the name Mark, mentioned Michelle McCool, and just mentioned him being on Instagram and stuff like that. It was kind of a weird approach looking back on it now, but he could do something like that. So I guess if this is really going to be a thing, then Owens is obviously going to be the best guy to do it. But for this one, I'm definitely going to take the I'll believe it when I see it approach. And hey, like if I'm wrong, cool, but I don't really know how excited I. Now this is gonna be weird, right? But I don't really know how excited I would be for an Austin return match. Don't get me wrong, like if he's healthy and looks great, then that's awesome. But it just feels kind of random and almost desperate on WWE's part at this point. And I don't know if that's just me kind of being a little sour on the product as a whole. I mean, of course, there's some bright spots in it and things like that, but I don't know, like, it just seems kind of forced. And to me, like, with that forced feeling, it just kind of takes the fun out of it and what it could be. And honestly, like, I don't really need to see Austin wrestle, Like, if you want Austin to come back, and of course, with it being in Texas, he even did, like, a video package for it. Like, it's almost obvious that he was gonna show up in some capacity, whether he was gonna be, like, the host or just make an appearance or whatever, but if you're really pressed to have him on there for a substantial amount of time, like a 10, like 5, 10, 15 minutes or something like that, then I guess I understand the idea of having a match, but I don't know, man. Like, let me know what you guys think about that specifically too, but I don't need to see Austin in a match. I would prefer to see Owens going a different route, having a match, and then Austin can come out and pretty much confront him for shit talking Texas, give him a stunner, and whatever, like call it a day, and have Austin be the host, and actually have him like do hosting shit and not just come out, open the show, and then you never see him again. Like, have him come out during like your down periods, because we all know WrestleMania is forever. Although I take that back, since they did divide it up into 2 nights again this year, and they probably are going to be more conscious of their time for each respective night. So I don't know, like, I guess as I think about it not being a 5-6+ hour event like it has been in the past, maybe they do want to focus solely on Austin in one night, but I don't know, that we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, because we don't even know if he's actually slated to return, and if he is, if it is going to be in a match, because I'd imagine if he's going to have an actual wrestling match, then we're going to see him on TV probably in the March time frame to hype that up and build it, because I wouldn't imagine that they would have him just like make a surprise appearance and then have a full-blown match. So we'll see how it ends up playing out, but I again would love to know your guys' opinion, and let me know if I'm just kind of being a Debbie Downer here, or if you guys agree with me. But getting to the card itself, I did want to kind of start off with the Austin thing there too, because I think that may play a role in if there's really a need to have, in WWE's mind you, a need to have 2 individual world championship matches, with the WWE title and the Universal title respectively. So that could be another excuse to have Roman and Brock Lesnar each have a respective title and kind of go the winner take all type route. So that's kind of maybe something that I don't know. I don't know if you guys have thought about it. It just kind of randomly popped into my mind when I was looking over the card and kind of thinking about everything that's led up to the Elimination Chamber. But and I say that because if you have an Austin match and you've hyped it, right, then that's going to sell a shit ton of tickets, more subscriptions to the respective networks itself. So I think that could really, really help, obviously, the WrestleMania card, regardless of my personal feelings about it. And you have that pretty much headlined one night, unless you want the women to main event one night, but that could be your co-main event, right? And thinking about that, like, if Austin's going to return, like, he's got a main I don't know, that's, I'm not even going to get into that right now, but you could have that on one card, and then your heavyweight championship match on the second card, which I would assume would still be your Sunday night card, so night 2. But getting into the card itself here, the first matchup we have on the list is the Elimination Chamber match itself for the men for the WWE Championship. We, of course, have the champion Bobby Lashley going into it versus Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, Austin Theory, Matt Riddle, and AJ Styles. This one, I'm actually very much looking forward to, and I think this is going to be a kick-ass match. I love all the individuals in the match. Yes, you can make a case for Austin Theory not really fitting in with the rest, but I think he's going to use this as an opportunity to shine, and I hope they have him start the match off. I would kind of like to see him start off the match maybe against either AJ Styles or Seth Rollins. I think since Rollins is still your heel, you may want to hold him off because I think he could gain a lot of babyface momentum and fan support, right? Depending on how long he were to last. But I would probably go with starting off with Theory and Styles because I'd love to see them kind of get a good, 3 to 5 minutes before the next entrant makes their way into the match. I'm not sure exactly I don't remember the exact time interval for the chamber. I think it's either 3 or 5 minutes, but whatever, regardless, I think they could have a nice little showcasing there. Then I could see maybe a Riddle coming out next, or maybe Rollins and then Riddle. But I think you're obviously going to save your Lesnar and Lashley for the end. Could be wrong there too. It could be fun, and thinking about it, me, personally, it could be fun to see Brock Lesnar start off the match. Maybe you do start off the chamber match with it being a Lesnar versus a Theory. I think that would be pretty cool to see too. So I may change my official, maybe I don't know if maybe prediction is the right word, but my hope for the start of the chamber match. I think now looking at it again, if you're not going to hold Brock and Lashley to the end as the last two guys in their respective pods, then I would love to see Lesnar start off the chamber match itself with Theory. So I think that would be pretty cool and pretty fun because, we're never going to see Austin Theory versus Brock Lesnar. I'm pretty confident on that just because of how young Theory is and still young in his career. I mean, he definitely has a lot of promise, and I could see him being a main eventer and 2-3 years from now, but not right now. So I think that'd be a pretty cool opportunity to kind of get that out of the way and see what those two going up against each other would look like. But as far as the prediction for this match itself, it's kind of hard, to be honest with you, because it really depends on if WWE really wants to pull the trigger on having the champion versus champion at WrestleMania. Whether I don't see them, even if they were to have Brock win here, I don't see them having the WrestleMania match be a unification match for the titles. I could really just see them do a full winner take all, kind of like what they did with the women at WrestleMania 35. So I've gone back and forth with this one too, but as much as a lot of people are predicting Brock Lesnar wins here, It does make sense. I'm going with Lashley retaining. I think, and again, unless they have big plans, and again, and when I say big plans, that could involve Cody Rhodes as well, right? Like Cody Rhodes could view him as a marquee matchup for WrestleMania. As crazy as that may sound to a lot of people, but I'm still going with maybe, I don't know if the safe bet is the right term, but that's Bobby Lashley retaining here, to be honest with you. The dark horse I could see would be an AJ Styles victory because I think, yes, AJ Styles hasn't really been booked the best in the past year, maybe year plus. It's debatable. AJ Styles always looks good, and AJ Styles is always credible. He is always, to me, he's that guy where you can kind of throw him in any situation and at any level on the card, and yeah, it may not be ideal and it may not be where you want him to be, but he makes it work, right? And he makes it believable. So I could very easily see them throwing us a complete curveball and wanting to do something big in Saudi and have AJ Styles win here and come back and have him going into WrestleMania. Now, would I put money on that? Probably not. I'd probably put my money, honestly, on Bobby Lashley retaining here and then having the focus be on building an opponent for Lashley going into Mania. So, and I say that, but I could definitely see Lesnar winning here as well. So, hey, if Lesnar wins tomorrow, I'm not going to be shocked. I probably won't agree with it 100%, but I guess would make sense in the WWE world. But I think that the better option here is to go with Bobby Lashley because that guarantees, regardless of what happens on the remaining portion of the card, you have 2 World Heavyweight Championship matches, and whether you need them both to main event both nights, I personally think you can have either Charlotte and Ronda main event night one or the Becky match main event night one. That's interchangeable at this point, but I think the women should at least main event one night, and then you can save your Roman and Lesnar main event for night two. So, and then by having the women in the main event of night one, you still have your actual heavyweight championship match and Bobby Lashley versus whomever be on that card as well. So I think it's kind of a safe bet. And then of course everything else pretty much is just icing at that point, because of course you're gonna have your Edge match, and I would love to see if we're not gonna have Styles win here, which like I said we're not really counting on, but I would love to see Styles versus Edge at WrestleMania. I think the story would be, honestly, thinking about it, I don't really know what the story would be, besides, like, them just making up something, because they don't really have history together, is what I'm getting at. So yeah, and, as I say it, I would just love to see the match, and I think that these two guys, and I think they can really make something out of nothing. So I would love to see the story and what they really, and even if it starts off as like mutual respect and AJ maybe devolved back to his heel side or something like that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, because you're obviously not going to leave Edge off of WrestleMania, right? And I don't think you should to AJ Styles either. And I personally think that at WrestleMania we're going to have Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle. I think it's time to pull the trigger on RK Bro, but that's a whole nother topic for another time. But yeah, so officially and my prediction here is Bobby Lashley is going to retain, but I think this match is going to be pretty kick-ass. I think it's going to be hard-hitting, it's going to be pretty brutal. But yeah, my vote here is Lashley retains. The other chamber match that we have on the card is the women's chamber match, including Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair versus Liv Morgan, Doudrop, Nikki ASH, and Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss was revealed to be the final, I guess, entrant for the chamber lineup. This one I feel like it's going to be maybe a sleeper as well. I don't think it's going to be, no offense, better than the men's match, but hey, I'd love to be wrong. But I think in this match specifically, I think it's going to come down to Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. I don't see this one really going that much longer once all of the entrants are in the match itself. As much as I'd love to see one of the women dominate the match like we saw with Shayna Baszler a few years back, I think this is going to be pretty competitive and all around. Maybe you have early elimination of like a Nikki ASH or a Liv Morgan, but I think for the most part they're going to survive the match in and of itself until the very end, and then, as much as I hate to say it, probably have like a few like quick finishes with quick eliminations, get a few girls out, and then I personally see the final three being Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and as much as I hate to say it, Alexa Bliss. I'd love to throw Doudrop in there, and I hope I'm wrong, but with all the rebuilding and refocusing on Alexa Bliss that they've been doing, I think that they may want to try to elevate her in this, and I think you could probably get away with it. I'm not seeing, because I don't really see this match being like that brutal or anything like that. Whereas I see the men's match, them using the chamber more, I don't really see the women using the chamber as much here. As much as I would love to see it, and I think it would be fitting for obviously Rhea Ripley, and I think Bianca, but I think it would be fun to see like some type of hardcore no disqualification match between Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, and just see those two women just go out there and beat the shit out of each other. Like I would just love to see that. Something in me would just like love to see that nasty side of Bianca Belair just come out, and I think Rhea Ripley would be the perfect opponent for that. So that's why, another reason why I kind of predict and hope that the chamber match boils down to Ripley and Belair. And as much as I would love Ripley to see Ripley win this match rather and make it to WrestleMania, I think it's all about Belair, and I as it should be in this point in time. I think Ripley is going to be a good opponent for Bianca after WrestleMania again, and maybe if I put that out in the universe, we can get that hardcore match, which we're not going to, but one can hope. I think it's all about Bianca right now. I think with all the shit that she went through at WrestleMania at SummerSlam, and not really getting her exact opportunity to, without some BS around it, and regaining the title, I think that it's time, I think that you have her face Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is viewed as the star of the women's division, and I guess that's debatable as well. You know, you can say Charlotte Flair is the star, or I guess maybe now that Rousey's back, but I think longevity-wise, at least, in my opinion, if we're going to talk like main event star, it's Becky Lynch in the women's division. So I think having her go up against Bianca Belair and having Becky lose to Bianca, and I think what they need to hype up going into once Bianca wins the chamber match and they start the actual build for the singles match to Mania, I think they need to hype up how long Becky Lynch has had the Raw Women's Championship. Since they're going off of and playing off of she hasn't lost it in, like, I don't know the exact number, but it's 500 plus days. It's very similar to Roman Reigns, because they're not counting when she had to relinquish the title for stepping away, obviously when she was pregnant last year, which is fine. You know, I'm fine with that. I'm with that. You know, it makes sense. But I think that needs to be the hype. So that way, that's just another accomplishment for Bianca Belair when she wins the title. It's just another just like told you moment, and just like another redemption for Bianca, you know, like it's just another thing that Becky Lynch has been rubbing in her face and that Becky Lynch has held over her. So I think that would be cool, and that's why part of me would love to see Becky and Bianca main event night one, because I'd love to see Bianca just get that moment again. Yeah, she had it last year with Sasha, and I think that in and of itself, that was my favorite match. I just thought everything about that was just so well done. It was a beautiful moment too. Like I loved everything about it. You're not going to be able to replicate that emotion and that feeling and that vibe, but I don't think that's obviously the focus this year. I think that served its purpose last year, and I think this year it's all about kicking Becky Lynch's ass and taking over that number one spot on Raw in the women's division. And hopefully they you know, keep the rocket on her, so to speak, and they build her or try to build her as much as they did with Becky. So I have a lot of strong feelings for Bianca Belair. I think that she's so good, and she looks like a star. So I think you need to capitalize on this when you can. So got a little sidetracked there with the whole WrestleMania talk, but that just kind of solidifies here where you have to pull the trigger on Belair, and if you don't, you have to go Ripley, right? But I don't really see why you would right now at this point. Again, no disrespect, because I would love for Rhea Ripley to be in that position right now, but it's just not her time. I think Rhea Ripley's time is going to be the feud after WrestleMania with Bianca Belair. And then we'll get into it then on who wins at what point. But my official prediction here is Bianca Belair, and I really don't think that's much of a shocker to anyone. But that is my official vote for this match. Next up on the list, we have the SmackDown Tag Team title match, which is, of course, the champions being the Usos versus the Viking Raiders. I hate to say it, but I think this is just a match on the card just to kind of fill a slot. You know, I'm just so disappointed with the tag team division, and I hate to be, you know, that person, but it's just slim pickings, man. Like the Viking Raiders could have been so much more. They could have been badasses in the division, but every time I see them now, I just think of them playing basketball with the Street Profits from I don't even know how long ago that was, and it just kind of ruined it for me, you know, like and it's nothing against them because they are amazing in the ring, right? Like their match against Ricochet and Aleister Black at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn was from obviously a few years ago, was so good. And to see, I don't want to say how much they've fallen, but just how much WWE kind of dropped the ball with them, it's just sad, you know, and the tag division itself is just sad. So, again, hate to be negative on that, guys, but again, I think this match is going to be pretty good, though, you know, like, saying all of that, and putting all that to the side, all four individuals in this match are kick-ass in the ring, and so I think as long as they're given the proper time, I think this could be a really solid match, but it sucks that I can't really be too excited for the story itself going into it, and obviously, like, to me, it's kind of obvious, rather, that the Usos are going to retain here, so, of course, that is my official pick, but I wish I could be a little bit more excited for that one, but it's probably going to be a solid match regardless. But moving on from that match, we have the Falls Count Anywhere match with Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss. I'm just again shocked that we're still in this predicament with Drew and Madcap Moss. I don't really know what to say much about this one, guys. Like, I obviously see Drew McIntyre winning here. Not really sure why we're still doing this. I think we're just kind of killing time for all three individuals. And I think sadly, I don't think Drew is done with this tandem, though. I think once he's done with Moss, his focus is going to be on Corbin. And I sadly see that being his match against or with Corbin rather at WrestleMania. And I say that, and I say that because just the way that they're presenting this version of Corbin, of course I don't see McIntyre versus sad Corbin at WrestleMania, right? So obviously if there's going to be a version of Corbin, it would obviously be the happy version. But I just wish Corbin would have been taken more seriously, right? Like, I'm a big fan of his. I think he's very good in the ring. I think a lot of people give him shit just for whatever reason. I don't even know why, but I think that when he won the briefcase and lost it years ago, that was a really big blow for his main roster career. Now, he's obviously he's had good moments since then. And I personally, like I said, I'm a fan of Corbin. And by the way, he's a good follow on Instagram too. He seems like he is just a kick-ass chef. I hope, and I'm not sure if he does, and if he does, someone let me know, but I'd love to see like a little YouTube show, right? Like of him cooking, because the way he seasons the meat and just like, I don't know, like he just has a style and a swag to it. Like you have to check it out and see for yourself. But long story short, I see Drew McIntyre winning here. Kind of got off topic there. And I think he obviously wins here, and this leads to Drew McIntyre versus Baron Corbin. Does he still go by Baron? Yeah, I believe he still goes by Baron. I don't think he lost his name. But I see it being those two guys at WrestleMania, so I think it's a given that McIntyre wins here to set up that match going forward. Next up on the card, we have Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. I think this is going to be a very good match. I think, well, I say that, right? And part of me is kind of back and forth on whether this is going to be a quick match, and if Rey Mysterio just kind of does his best hits and calls it a night, and just a kind of like an FU to The Miz for everything that he has done and said to Dominic. But by the way, shout out to The Miz, because I loved the line about referencing Dominic's height and saying, "Oh, are you sure you're not Eddie Guerrero's?" Or he didn't say, I don't believe he said the last name. I think he just said, "Are you sure you're not Eddie's son?" or something to that effect. And if you guys have been long-term wrestling fans, which I'm sure you have been if you're listening to podcasts, I'm sure you remember the whole custody feud and the whole, is he Ray's son? Is he Eddie's son? And it was so good, right? You could never do something like that nowadays, but it was so WWE, and I thought it was entertaining. WWE has done a lot of shit in the past, and maybe not everything in that little feud was probably kosher, but it was what it was, and it was obviously long lasting, right? Like, we're still referencing it, and it made its place in the wrestling history books for us to be calling back on it, 15, 17 years later, whatever year it was. But yeah, I think, long story short, guys, with this one, I think Rey Mysterio is going to win here. I'd love to see this match go 8-10 minutes, because I think Miz is good in the ring. Miz is another one of those guys who gets a lot of shit, but he's pretty decent in the ring. He holds his own, so I think this is going to be a fun little match, but I think it's Rey Mysterio here all day. Like, I would honestly be shocked if The Miz won here. But moving on from that match, we have next the tag team match for the women. And it's actually, thinking about it, it's even more surprising and more noteworthy that all these women rather are getting time on the card. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 women on the card here for the Saudi Arabia show, so that's a pretty big deal. That's pretty dope. But like I was saying, we have the tag team match, which includes Ronda Rousey teaming with Naomi versus Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville. I don't see this one going along, though, to be honest, guys. I think we have a pretty stacked card here. Again, the fact that we're getting another tag team match with the women here is pretty dope. I think this is just going to be... this is just a match just to kind of spotlight the women here and have Ronda Rousey have a match in Saudi Arabia and kind of because I'm pretty certain this is gonna be her first one in Saudi. So it's a pretty big deal, you know. And I love I love Naomi tagging with Ronda Rousey here. I love that tag team, and I love Naomi getting a spot here. And of course, Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville are the make an obvious tag team with everything that's been going on. And it's cool, you know. It makes sense to have Ronda Rousey be Naomi's tag team partner to come in and kind of emphasize that she's going to be the babyface going forward in her feud with Charlotte Flair leading to WrestleMania. So I don't see this one going long. I see it probably being, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes. And I definitely see Ronda Rousey and Naomi picking up the W here. With this one, I'd kind of be shocked if Sonya Deville and Charlotte Flair won here. So I'm sticking with Ronda Rousey and Naomi, and I'm just happy that Naomi is getting this moment, and I hope we end up getting Naomi versus Sonya Deville at WrestleMania. For whatever reason, we still don't know why Sonya hates Naomi, but whatever reason, I hope they just continue making bullshit reasons out of it and playing with the thermostat and all that, whatever. Because at this point, you just have to, right? Like, at this point, you have to drag it out to WrestleMania. Let Naomi have her payoff here with this feud that we have no reason why we're feuding over, and call it a day and kind of be done with Sonya Deville. I think as authority figure, I think it's kind of run its course at this point, and I think that it's time for Sonya. And obviously the women's division needs it, right? So I think Sonya Deville would be good I think it would be a good match, first of all. I think it would be a fun match to have at Mania. I think both women deserve it. I think Sonya Deville would hold her own with Naomi. I feel, and that sounds very weird to say, but Naomi has had experience at WrestleMania in the past, and I don't believe, unless it's been like a battle royal, that Sonya Deville has had a one-on-one match at Mania. So I think this would be cool for both ladies involved. And I would love to see like Sonya Deville either be forced to put up her authority position or be tricked into it or whatever, but somehow had to put up her authority position in WWE if she loses the match. So I don't know. I think that maybe where we're going with that as well just kind of makes sense. And for me personally, like I said, I hope that they don't just do another random like one-on-one match on a random SmackDown and call it a day. At this point, even though we're still kind of far out from Mania, I feel like it's only right to just let these ladies have their blow-off match at Mania as well. So, again, wrapping it up here with this particular match, I see Rousey and Naomi taking the W, and Charlotte Flair and Deville just, you know, being good sports about it. And maybe, you know, I'll leave that one alone. But Ronda Rousey and Naomi are definitely taking the W here, guys. And as I move down the card, I don't know how I forgot when I was counting the women who are going to be on the Saudi Arabia card itself. I don't know how I forgot about Becky Lynch and Lita, which is our next matchup on the card, of course. Becky Lynch being your Raw Women's Champion, going up against my all-time favorite in Lita. As much as it pains me to say it because, again, of how much I was a huge fan of Lita back in the day, she was just like everything to me, like her and of course the Hardy Boys, but she was just so cool and just so different, and looked different than the other women. She wasn't the stereotypical like blonde bombshell, right? Like she was different. She had a different style. Like everything about her was just cool to me. So as much as I would love to see her get the win here, it just wouldn't make sense. I don't want to see her win it here and then lose it to Becky Lynch on Raw on Monday type thing, just to have something to talk about or anything like that. And again, as much as I would be down to see Lita win the title, just because of my personal bias, it just doesn't make sense right now. But it is kind of cool that this is her first singles match back in, 10 years or something crazy like that. I wish it was over here so I could see it, maybe a 10, but, it is what it is. Again, I think this is another almost slam dunk prediction here. Nothing groundbreaking. Honestly though, I would be shocked if I was wrong on this one. But my money is on Becky Lynch retaining. I think it's all about Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair going forward to WrestleMania. So it would be stupid to take any shine or any momentum off of that. But the next matchup that we have on the card, guys, and I believe it is our final match of the night, is Roman Reigns versus Goldberg for the Universal Championship. Now, as much as I would love to say this is a slam dunk as well. And for a lot of people it may be, and maybe it should be. I don't trust WWE fully, guys. Like, there is a I want to say small, but a rather substantial part of me that fears Goldberg could win in Saudi Arabia. And just for the simple fact, like I said with the whole Becky Lynch and Lita thing, just to stir shit up and have people talking for the next week or so. It would be a little less than a week until Friday night on SmackDown. The reason I say that is because Goldberg has a weird tradition of winning in February. He beat Kevin Owens in February, I believe it was Kevin Owens, for the title in February a few years back. He beat The Fiend in February. Still a little salty about that, more than a little salty. And obviously we're still in February, and I'm just scared, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna even sit here and pretend that I'm confident Reigns is gonna retain. As much as he, in my opinion, obviously should. I shouldn't be sitting here with fear that Roman Reigns is going to lose to Goldberg. And not just lose to Goldberg, but lose the Universal Championship. And another reason why I say that is because of what Reigns did to Brock Lesnar at day one. Or, I'm sorry, at the Royal Rumble. I think it's part of me feels like WWE just can't not have Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns in the same building and not have them interact. And I think with this specific case, it's almost crazy if it doesn't happen. If I'm Lesnar, I'm obviously pissed at Paul Heyman, first of all, and Roman Reigns for costing me the title at the Royal Rumble. So what better way to seek my revenge? And see, that's the thing too. Like, as I'm about to say this, my prediction earlier was that Brock Lesnar was not going to win the title, so he's obviously going to want to win the title at WrestleMania against Reigns. So I'm going to change it up on you guys as I'm talking it out. What I kind of see happening here is Brock Lesnar. And I say this, so this is, I'm going to back up even more here and do a little caveat. In a little asterisk, if Brock Lesnar is going to interrupt during the match, this is kind of how I see it playing out. Now, do I want him to interfere in the match? No. I want it to be not necessarily a squash match, but I kind of want it to be less than 5 minutes. My ideal scenario for this would just be Roman Reigns going in there, maybe Goldberg gets a few offensive moves in at the beginning, so everyone's like, oh shit, is he really going to win? And then no, obviously not. Roman Reigns does a Superman punch, a few spears, yada yada. We get to the 4.5 minute mark. Reigns hits a spear, calls it 1, 2, 3, we're done. Then Lesnar comes out, rather. But, with WWE, they like to do weird shit in the matches, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if you're going to have Lesnar interfere during the match, have him come out and then beat the shit out of Goldberg. Obviously, that would have a disqualification. So Reigns would retain the title. I don't know. I don't know, guys. Part of me doesn't see this going as smooth as just a regular no interference, 1, 2, 3 match. But I want that. Don't get me wrong. But I just feel like with having Reigns interfere and costing Lesnar the match at Royal Rumble and the title, mind you, it wouldn't make sense, especially with Lesnar being a hothead, right? Like, it wouldn't make sense for Lesnar to literally be in the building, and we all know he's in the building because he's obviously in a match. It wouldn't make sense for him to be there and not do something to Roman Reigns and to Paul Heyman. Me personally, I'd love to see him, do something backstage. I think that'd be cool, right? Have Reigns either making his way to the ring or have him backstage earlier in the night, and then Lesnar makes his way to him, or something to that effect, and they get into a brawl backstage. I think something like that would be cool and kind of different, and it would obviously make sense that Lesnar is so pissed he can't contain his rage, right? He can't wait. So the first chance he gets to kick the shit out of Reigns, he's going to take advantage of it. So there's obviously a lot of different ways that they could play this out, but to me, as long as Roman Reigns retains the title here, I think that's all that matters. This obviously is Goldberg's last match on his contract. that doesn't mean he hasn't signed a new contract or he hasn't signed an extension or anything like that. So that, to me, isn't really relevant because, yes, this could be the last match on his contract, but they could have already had an arrangement worked out, right? And it's just a matter of signing the paperwork. Or it could be his last match for a while and, he rides off into the sunset or whatever. But to me, my hope and my money is going to be on Reigns. If they put this on Goldberg, I will not be happy. And it'll be maybe a little bit of even of a spicier episode of a review show rather for the Elimination Chamber if that happens. But I am pretty certain it's a safe bet. But like I said, you can never trust WWE, and especially when Goldberg is involved. So my money here is on Roman Reigns. With that being said, guys, that is the full Elimination Chamber card that we have for 2022. Like I said earlier, let me know what you guys think of everything that we covered here today. If you think I'm crazy, what you think about Stone Cold's possible return, all that good stuff. Let me know on Twitter at ASHMANNS. And I hope you guys have an awesome weekend.